I am Layla Kyer, and so pleased to be here with this incredible panel of experts from many different industries, but all really focused on how we bring out the best of our people and really create organizations where employees are thriving. We've got a great list of questions I'm hoping to go through today, really focused on the current state of the world and how that's impacting organizations, leaders, and employees. I'm really looking forward to hearing from each of you on what you're doing within your organizations or with your clients and how you're helping really help people lead through this change and really complex and challenging times. So thanks for being here today. Perhaps I'd like to start, Stacy, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off, maybe give a quick intro, and then I'd love to hear about some of the challenges that your organization has faced in this current climate, and however you want to define the current climate, whether it be the social unrest, the COVID, obviously, and other changes that are happening.
Yeah, definitely, Layla. So hi, everyone. My name is Stacy Porter, and I'm at Outset Medical, and we have a device for dialysis, and I'm their VP of People and Culture. So one of the challenges for us really was that we were not a company that was accustomed to working from home. We had kind of this like hive activity in our office. Certainly we had a field force that was really kind of good at kind of managing their day remotely. We're national, we're only a domestic company at this point. But we had about 150 people in an office environment that were used to that kind of environment and kind of what it looks like on a day-to-day basis. So when COVID struck and we were all working remotely, it was really interesting. It was interesting to see kind of how blurry our boundaries got. It was also strange to be on Zoom calls for 30 minutes when you could have had a quick interaction in the office that would have been like 5. So I think it took a little bit of getting used to. Now, what I would tell you that we did during that time was we just communicated. And that sounds like it's so basic. We took our town halls that were every month, they became every week. I sent out a lot of emails just about working from home for dummies, wear pants, don't respond to a CC, jump off at 6 p.m. to make your kid dinner or some kind of meal during the day. I mean, it was like real basics, but we really just tried to support the team that had been so connected and so cohesive in the office in a distributed way. We had really good tools for it through technology, but we had to build connectedness in a whole different fashion.
Yeah, incredible. Abigail, I'd love to hear the same, give you the same question. Tell me about what's been going on in your organization, some of the challenges that you saw, and then maybe we can also start to hear some of the ways that you helped your teams overcome them.
Yeah, so very similar to what Stacy just mentioned a few minutes ago. We have a large Salesforce organization in 62 countries around the world. And a lot of our challenges were, a lot of elective surgeries were pretty much canceled, right? And so we have a team of sales professionals who typically are always on the road, flying all over the place to go to hospitals and deliver products to the clients, and they couldn't get into the hospitals because of COVID. And so the question became, how do you change their mindset around how they used to work, right, in an environment where they could do that, to a new environment where, they needed to be creative, to be more doing video trainings, training the surgeons through the videos, having Zoom calls instead of, again, you can't get to the hospitals. And so helping them through that challenge was a big one for us. And, quite successfully, we've been able to do that, and the business is ramping up. The other big one that I just want to touch on, and I know, giving others opportunity to talk, is around the idea of, we never worked remotely. We worked remotely before, but not the majority of the people work remotely. And so now everyone is getting to work remotely, and some folks are not comfortable with it, right? They either have small children, and look at me, like I mentioned, the world has changed. I had to drop my laptop, right? I have to be in a car to have a meeting with you right now, right? In the past, it would be very different. And so you have employees who everything is new to them. It could be sometimes very overwhelming. And then you have employees who don't have enough work to do, right? Because their work was in the office. For example, our recruiters, their work has changed. And so what we did was starting to redeploy employees into other roles to start to also create some type of developmental opportunities and giving them other experiences that typically they would not have, and giving them some other exposure as well. That has been helpful to us to try to keep them engaged and motivated while, let's say, recruiting starts sometime in October, but they're learning some new skills that ordinarily they wouldn't be able to do. So hopefully that helps.
That makes a ton of sense. And do you mind giving your quick intro and a little bit more about who you are and where you work?
Sure. Abigail Epino-Swala. I'm with Integra Life Sciences organization, and we're a global company, medical device in 62 countries.
Thank you. Fantastic. Let's do maybe one more. And Adam, perhaps we can hear from you about your organization's challenges and some of the things that you guys have put together to overcome them, and then we can move on and hear from a few others.
Thanks, Layla. My name's Adam. I'm the head of HR for a company called Synlogic. We're a clinical stage biotech company based in Cambridge, Mass. We engineer bacteria as therapeutics. I think that we found kind of 3 phases of the COVID response. Phase 1 was crisis management. We really didn't know what was happening, and we were dealing with emerging, breaking things that happened every single day, and it was fairly chaotic. Phase 2 was we managed to operationalize a working plan and a process that dealt with kind of that operating model. We actually have labs here, so we kept open throughout the whole crisis, but we had 10 or 15 people coming in initially, and then gradually that's ramped up. And I think we're now in phase 3, which is planning for the long haul. It's looking like this is not going to be a short-term thing, which is over by autumn. And so we're trying to get practices in place now, which could last 12, 24, who knows how long, months. And so I think it's 3 phases as we've kind of gone forward, and we've had to adjust and be fairly nimble in each of those different phases.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bev, taking a little different perspective, I'd love to hear how you've been working with your clients, and when they're reaching out to you and wanting support and help, what are they coming to you for, and how have you been helping them and advising them through these times?
Well, they're not coming to me for technology. They're coming to me for how do you stay humanly connected. And Stacy, I loved that you said start at the middle. In my work, I've always been concerned, so much attention to high potentials, and the massive middle is being ignored. And I always like to say, our attention's on hypos and forget about the popos. And the popos are passed over and pissed off. And so I've always believed in treasure. And maybe this is the time from a career standpoint to look at the redeployment opportunities that one of you mentioned, and think about how do we give people in this crazy period more exposure, more opportunity to think about their own mobility options. The thing that one of you talked about, I wrote the word staying connected. I think that what I hear from clients, individuals want to be touched by their managers. They want to be asked, how are you doing? And managers whose heads are overwhelmed with everything else, the thought of reaching out and then what do I say and how do I do it, is a hard additional thing to take on. One of the things I'm going to send you all that you can use any way you want is I took the 26 letters of the alphabet from Love 'Em. I wrote 26 questions that a busy manager could pick up the phone ask a remote employee. So you're welcome to use it. You know, Catherine, you'll help me make sure everybody gets it, because it's that, how are you doing in many different ways that I think individuals want to be asked. And busy managers need a list of questions. They actually need to be told, try this one and listen to the answer, and then go one step deeper. So I guess I'm back to the basics and the engagement that I do. And in the career work, you know, some organizations think no one's interested in career during this crazy time. Oh, yes, they are. And oh, yes, they are worried. And oh, yes, they are thinking ahead. And oh, yeah, managers too. So it's, how do we keep that going while we keep the business going as well? You know, and I'm into simple, quick, practical, how do you do it inexpensively, you know, and easily. So that's how I'm helping.
Really?
You know, I'm calling myself now, and it's a good guide on the side and a sage on the stage. So the guide on the sidey stuff, I'm loving, as well as the talks that I keep giving. And I love Catherine Natz. And she has every skill set that I do not have. And we realize between us, you know, we have a couple of ideas. I don't know how we'll get to put them out, but we have ideas. Anyway, so nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Bev. And you are someone who really doesn't need an introduction, but I would love for you to give a quick snapshot of who you are and the work that's led you to here, just so we can capture that as well.
Work that's led me to here. I've just always been in how people grow. And maybe, Adam, from my day at Brandeis University, and I lived in Cambridge, it was watching college kids. Here's what I think the aha was. I worked at A schools that only took A students. And those students felt, I'm an A student, I stand in an A line, and A life will be offered to me because of my heritage and my smarts. And when they found the A life didn't happen as they thought, they did have alternatives. So it led me into believing how important it was to have not just one game plan, but several game plans, and to hold them simultaneously, which is what all the career development work and Up Is Not work kind of centered on.
Incredible.
So I'm interested in thinking out of the box and develop old ideas new ways.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a way to talk.
A perfect way to describe it. I think so many of us have from your work. Carrie, I'd love to hear from you, given that you're part of such a large global organization, given sort of what's going on, it's easy to be sort of insular focused and a country or a region or something like that, but you've really had to take a large purview. So give me a little bit of an overview of what's been going on in your organization. What are some of the challenges you've been facing? And before you get into that, if you don't mind giving a quick intro, just so everyone understands where you work and who you are.
Sure, Layla, thank you. So Carrie Cushing, I'm part of GE. So I'm in the GE Digital business. So that's our software and tech arm. And I'm responsible for the HR organization, everything outside of the US and India. So we refer to that as international. So that's 61 countries and about 1,700 people. I think for us, this situation, the COVID situation, has just been, you know, everybody's had a very individual experience. And I think when when we all kind of watched the virus kind of spread throughout the world, you know, depending where you were in the world, depended how you felt about that. And of course, even if you were in the same country, you might have felt differently, of course, as well. So I think the first big thing we took away was just how different this was for everyone, and everyone's at a different phase. And even now, you know, in the morning I'm on lines with Shanghai, Beijing. The world is a different place for them versus my colleagues in California. So, you know, and everywhere in between. So I think that, you know, just understanding where people are at has just been so important for us. And I think, Beverly, something you said about, you know, just asking the question, how are people doing, has been such an important thing for us. And embracing the situation that we're in, and accepting that there's good stuff in that as well. So I was reflecting for this call and realizing that I have met more of my colleagues, husbands or wives, sons or daughters, pets. I've met some mothers, fathers, you know, I've met all kinds, and embrace that, right? And have the conversation with people when it's happening. We had a session yesterday where one of our senior women was talking about, you know, how do you homeschool and how do you cope with that coming on to your conference calls? And, you know, she was very upfront and said, guys, embrace it. Introduce your child to the call. And that has actually been such a source of joy for me and connection, which we would never have got had I traveled to Dubai, Shanghai, you know, wherever my teams are. So I think we are really trying hard to look for the bright side, and I recognize it's a very serious situation. We are very fortunate. We're a software company, so working from home is not particularly an issue. But there's good stuff here, and I think looking for that and learning from that has been a really important part of our response, and how we navigate, you know, the next 6, 12, who knows how long, because you can't press pause, right? You know, to Beverly's point, people are still interested in careers. People still want to grow. So how do you grow in this environment is really the look we are taking.
It's really wonderful. And I love this idea of accelerating the authentic wholeness of leadership when you can't hide it anymore because they're walking in the door or they're barking in the background or something like that. Meg, to kind of building on Carrie's point about some of the learnings, trying to find, if you want to call it the silver linings or the positive sides of this, tell us a little bit about your organization and maybe some of the positives or the learnings or the benefits, if we can stretch it that far, that have come out of this time. And maybe if you could start by just introducing yourself as well.
Great, thank you. I'm Megan Wolf. I am the Manager of Organizational Development at Sumitomo Corporation of Americas, which is an old school trading company. So you might not know us, but you use many of our products. Let me confirm that for you. That was quite eye-opening. Everything from food to oil and gas to the people movers that you use in the airports. We are in all of that. So very interesting company. I am responsible for all the learning, development, performance, and change management in the Americas, and finally getting to start working globally. So hopefully we'll get more aligned on those processes. And that's actually something that I believe this pandemic has opened up for us. So being a very traditional Japanese trading company, we were not work from home before. You know, you could maybe get away with it if you had a doctor's appointment or your car broke down, but it was a big no-no, and we moved fast. As soon as it started hitting the offices in the different cities, as soon as we realized how serious this was, I take pride in my company for really deciding, hey, you know, our employees' lives are not worth coming to the office for. And even though no time before this were we considering working from home full time, they allowed everyone to work from home immediately. So of course, you know, HR then, you know, panics. Maybe we got the sweats a little bit, like, what is this going to look like? Does everyone have the right setup? Is everyone comfortable with this? And that kind of pressure, I think, really pushed us forward for a lot of positive change. So increased communication. So right when this first happened, I'm sure you all heard this, but how do I know my people are working? How did you know they were working before? Well, I can see them. Okay, well, that doesn't mean they're working. That means they clicked out of Amazon real fast before you came to their cube. So it's been having these conversations about, okay, so our whole workforce has changed. What do we need? And managers are now, I've been encouraging them, really think about the skill set for the future. So our businesses are changing. They're changing rapidly. Some are doing really well, and again, some are not. So what skill sets do we need to start developing to really keep up with this type of change in the world? And then that kind of opened up this door, like you could see the light bulb click on and, oh, like there are lots of other ways we can start developing people. And maybe if our team isn't so busy right now, maybe we could loan them out as a type of shadowing or growth assignment so that they can start learning different skills. This might be a great time to learn about risk management and then return to one of the businesses. Or, you know, if you're working in food, maybe you get to go to logistics. There are lots of different options that managers are suddenly starting to explore and become more open to. And they're moving from kind of that mindset of scarcity of, I have to keep all of my people, I have to see them so that I know they're working, to, oh, okay, well, work is still getting done. We've been doing this for several months. Things are going okay. Maybe there's an abundance. Maybe we can actually start learning and growing people and sharing these types of skills within the organization. So despite all of the scariness, all the sadness going on in the external world, I think this has propelled us toward more positive benefits for employees and managers. I hope to ride that wave a little bit longer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great story and a narrative that I hope can continue. Richard, coming to you, you've worked with so many of the leaders of the Fortune 1000 companies and certainly the Fortune 100 companies. Would love to hear from your perspective some of the challenges that they've come to you to help solve. And then also maybe what's being asked of leaders today that maybe wasn't as pointed of a request or ask yesterday, you know, yesterday being before a lot of the current situation.
Yes, thank you very much. Richard Hodge, thought leader with the Advantage Performance Group, researcher, writer, in the midst of a number of consulting engagements today. Some of them at the top and some of them, frankly, right down in the trenches. And so many of the things that all of you in the real world doing the real work that have talked about so far today are really engulfing every organization, every corporation, every industry, small, medium, and large. And there's some fundamental pieces that I think come into play at a time like this. And I loved hearing you, Meg, and others talk about mindset. The mindset is really, really super critical during these times of ambiguity, confusion, and change, starting with our leaders. And again, Meg, I love you hear you talking about moving from a mindset of scarcity to abundance. And I hear others talking about moving from a mindset of performance and results to maybe some innovation and development. So we've been doing a lot of work with senior leaders around what messages are they sending, what kind of a story are they putting in place, because it's not very perfect, like you say, Adam, 3 phases, and who the heck knows what phase 3 is. I kind of feel like we're stuck in the middle right now in sort of a funny place, and helping the leaders tell their stories and be real and get their messages out, and be present, and increase the cadence of the people that they're connected to and that they work with. So that's one thing we've worked at, is telling those right kinds of stories and creating the purpose and the vision that people can connect to. Daniel Pink's work always talked about, you know, purpose being one of the 3 things that truly motivates us. Another one he talked about was mastery. And I think at this point in time, working with regular managers and real people, tapping into the mastery notion is really a great opportunity. This is a time for reflection. This is a time for confusion, but this is also a great time for learning and innovation. So what I've been trying to work with organizations on is, if they have extra bandwidth now, they're doing things differently, let's innovate. Let's innovate on how we work. Let's innovate in the ways we engage our customers. Let's innovate in the ways that we develop new things and co-create. Let's even innovate in the way we're organizationally designed and collaborate. Try some new tools, maybe some work and some don't. So giving people the hope of connecting to not just their careers and their development, which is also so critical right now that we don't stop that. In fact, we double down on it, as you talk about, Bev, but we also give them things to focus on and recraft their jobs a little bit. If we need to reset the measures of success, particularly at the top, I've had a number of conversations about the importance now of realigning the goalposts. What's success going to look like next quarter and by the end of the year, and completely get away from everything that you put in at the start of the year. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Help people see those targets and those goals and understand what success looks like. And it may look very differently in the next 6 months, or as you say, Adam, 24 months, than it really has ever looked in the past, or even looked at the beginning of the year. And people need those clear expectations and that role clarity to really soar and do that innovation and that learning. So I think that's a lot of the energy that I've collaborated on and seen. And maybe one last small point is we've spent a lot of time helping the sales organizations change their mindset, back to the mindset point of start with empathy, start with questions, like you say, Bev. Start to understand. Don't jump into the business and try and move through objectives and needs and issues and problems and all of that stuff. Start with the person and take some time to really ask more and learn more about the whole person than you ever have that you're working with, and find ways to keep them connected. Not connected to you necessarily, but just connected, because we're all a little bit disconnected now, and we need to find ways to do that and help your customers. If all it is some great interactions, some good conversations, sending an article periodically and let them know you're thinking about them. In times like this, it actually really matters. So start with empathy and start with understanding and find ways to stay connected. And it doesn't have to be about the next sale or the next product or even the objectives that you're working on. That's all good and important, but think more about that person and where they find themselves at this point. So I'd say that's some of the highlights that I've bumped into as we've been working through this last 4 or 5 months.
Really seeing the humanity in others. But Stacy, if I could ask you the same question, a leader or manager comes to you and says, how do I stay effective right now? I'm feeling like I'm a bit lost. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question, Layla. I think the thing is to think small, to make small commitments, to make small promises, to ask people, what do you want to accomplish in the next quarter? How can I help you? How can I support you? And then do it. I also love what Carrie said about treat the whole person. Say, hey, is that your sister in the background? I'd love to say hi. Or the little boy who comes in and says, Mom, can you make me lunch at 10 a.m.? Just kind of roll with it. I think this is a time for compassion. This is a time for creativity, but it's also a time of just putting our ego aside. I think the other thing is we used to, as HR professionals, worry about retention, and then it was engagement. Now it is viable skill sets for the future. So I would say, hey, what skill do you want to build this year? I'm going to help you do it. What is something you think could keep you viable for the next 5 years, the next 10 years? Let's build it together.
Incredible. We are nearly out of time, but I guess I'll just open it up if anyone has a final comment, maybe to that similar question of advice that you would give as we get ready to close this out. And Abigail, great to see you.
This might be food for another whole meeting, but what I'm being aware of now is the connect between talent acquisition and all of us, and how do you bring talent back, and how do you reboard people? So it's another kind of outgrowth of all of this that could be food for another conversation. The magic in this, I feel, I don't know if the rest of you do, it's just a nice people who don't know each other, you know, saying hello. So
Yeah.
I would echo some of the themes from Carrie and Stacey. I think it's such a personal situation. Everybody's situation is so different. The best advice I can give is don't make assumptions and just ask a question. As simple as that.
I love this. Asking questions, seeing the humanity, finding ways to stay connected, whatever that looks like, thinking small, and then really building skill sets for right now. So we are at time. I just would very personally like to thank each and every one of you for being here, for your incredible words of wisdom. I personally could stay on for the next 3 hours if we all had the time. But thank you so much. I know this will be really valuable to anyone who gets the opportunity to listen in on this. So thanks for being here today.